हेलो नमस्कार एंड वेलकम टू टॉकिंग पॉइंट ब्लैंक। नाउ आज हम बात करेंगे टर्की इंडिया रिलेशंस की एंड व्हाट हैज़ हैपेंड इन लास्ट फ्यू डेज बिटवीन टर्की एंड इंडिया, especially after Turkish President Recep Erdogan has given a speech saying that he will back Pakistan no matter what the consequences with India are. So I think this is finally where Turkey has drawn a red line with India on its relationship with India and with Pakistan as well. We had never seen something like this coming from Turkey. Turkey always sided with Pakistan but had a very ambiguous approach, or you can say a soft approach towards India as well. Uh, 2019, Turkey was one of the most, you can say, advocated, सबसे ज़्यादा जो पाकिस्तान के लिए जिसने एडवोकेसी की थी पोस्ट एब्रोगेशन ऑफ आर्टिकल 370, वो टर्की नहीं की थी, बट देन G20 मीटिंग में टर्की ही था जो इंडिया के साथ बिजनेस करना चाहता था एंड वांटेड टू टेक you know uh, the trade to $10 billion, as was suggested by our Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji as well. After a CEO summit last year, Turkey also set up a Indo-Turkey policy center where the two countries actually decided that they will down together and they will iron out the differences between the two nations of any issues which they face in terms of diplomacy or in terms of trade and economy. But I think what Erdogan has done is with a single swipe of hand, he has gone ahead and he has erased any chance. I would not say that everything is off the table and no dialogue is going to happen with Turkey, but he has largely erased any goodwill the two countries had built upon themselves in last, you can say, last few years, and he has taken Indo-Turkey relationships right down to level zero. Now, this is something which we saw the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau doing with India as well, self-destructing. And till he got self-destructed, I think Erdogan is somebody who has also chosen to be self-destructive till he gets destructed. In Turkey, anyway, his position in Turkey is not good politically. We have seen him, holding on to power by force rather than by democracy, and that everybody knows. But what are the reason behind this? Why is Turkey doing what Turkey is doing? See, the problem is we have to see this in a larger context. इसको अगर हम larger context में देखते हैं तो we'll understand what is happening. अगर आप मिडल ईस्ट को देखते हैं, पहले तो एक चीज़ बड़ी क्लियर है कि टर्की और सऊदी अरेबिया जो है दे आर राइवल्स 100% इन दैट रीजन. हमारी जो रिलेशनशिप विद यूएई एंड सऊदी अरेबिया है, इट इज़ फार मोर वार्म, इट इज़ फार मोर फ्रेंडली विद Saudi Arabia and UAE rather than with Turkey. Has been, we have been building on that relationship. Turkey and Saudis largely are rivals in Middle East, and Turkey is always trying to outdo Saudi Arabia when it comes to its own Middle East policies. That is reason number one. Now, how does that reason number one becomes imperative in Turkey India relationships, or becomes a hindrance in India Turkey relationships? So you have to understand that as well. Turkey under Erdogan has been trying to shift the power of Muslim countries from Saudi Arabia to Turkey. What I mean to say is कि ये जो उम्मा का एक ख्वाब है, Muslim Brotherhood का जो एक ख्वाब है of creating an ummah, being a Muslim leader. If you remember, Erdogan के आने के बाद से Erdogan has been very, very, uh, you know, vocal about building his old Ottoman Empire, which existed before World War One and which got disintegrated after World War One. Turkey के जो geopolitical ambitions हैं, they are now matching what Turkey used to be, what Istanbul used to be, or what Ankara used to be before the World War One happened, which is they wanted to be an expansionist uh, Ottoman Empire, expansionist Islamic central force in the Middle East and in South Asia. Now, this puts Turkey directly under fire from the Saudis, because at the moment the power of Muslim seat, they are heading the power of Muslims. The center of power is basically Saudi Arabia, because the Mecca and the Medina are in control of the Saudis. Saudis have been the one who have the center of power of the seat of you can say the Islamic power जिसको हम बोलते हैं वो Saudis के पास है, and Turkey is trying to shift that. That is number one. Now, why does Pakistan become important? Pakistan also becomes important because there is reason number two behind it. If you look at what is happening in Gaza right now, both, and what happened in Syria, uh, what is happening with Iran. तो गाजा की अगर हम बात करेंगे, वी नो दैट इरानियंस हैव बीन बैकिंग गाजा, हमास इन गाजा. वी ऑल्सो नो दैट सीरिया में जोलानी इज बैक इन पावर, विच इज बेसिकली अलकायदा इन इट्स पोलिटिकल फॉर्म इज बैक इन पावर. The Americans have got in power, and now both Israel as well as Turkey are fighting in Syria to gain maximum influence. Now, what Turkey is trying to do, and I've done a podcast, not a podcast, but I've done a video on this, I think a way back, about a month back, where I explained what is happening between Israel and Turkey in Syria, but I'll just touch it again. Both Israel and Turkey are looking for maximum influence in Syria because Israel wants to create a buffer zone for itself as long as Syria and Lebanon or Gaza or Palestine or Jordan is concerned, mostly on the Syrian front because it sees threats emanating from Syria. Israel was under threat from Syria when Bashar al-Assad was ruling Syria. So Israel ka hai ki they want to the air bases which the Russians have, they want the Russians to be gone. They want their influence to increase in Syria so they can create that buffer zone. On the same time, the Turkish want to occupy any Russian bases which the Russians eventually will vacate. Turkey wants to get its own influence into Syria primarily because of Kurds. Now, Kurds are somebody who lived in Turkey and Syria, form about 35% of the population of the region, and are largely against the Turks. And they, because they want more autonomy, they want more political rights in both the lands. So, Turkish feel that Kurds are a direct threat to them, and they want to eliminate the Kurds from Syria. So that is why Turkey wants its influence in Syria. At the same time, Israelis feel Turkey is a threat because if Turkey gets control in Syria, that means they get a control of the Syrian government, of the large narrative in Syria, and they will consolidate as an Islamic power in that region. If I put it out very bluntly, so another thing is that fight is also on in Syria with between the Turkey and the Israelis. There is no, secret that India and Israel relations are absolutely fantastic. Now, why Pakistan? Look, Pakistan is a country which has largely lived on aid from Saudis and UAEs. Pakistan has a very 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 cordial relationship with the Saudis and the UAEs. There has been rough weathers between the two countries. Their relationship has hit rough weather as well, but then by and large they try to stabilize it. It's just that the Saudi Arabia doesn't shower the money that they used to between 80s and 2000s on Pakistan because they had their own games going on. I don't want to get into Afghanistan and all that. You all know that what it all was about. So now Saudis are not willing to give free ka lunch to Pakistanis, but at the same time Saudis are not somebody who are also abandoning Pakistan when it comes to the relationships. And Turkey's constant attempt is to wean out Pakistan from the Saudi influence and get it more aligned with the Turkish influence. And this is what we saw when Imran Khan was in power. Imran was somebody who went openly, and he actually antagonized the Saudi prince Mohammed bin Salman at that time, and he clearly aligned with Erdogan during that time as well. Now, Imran was somebody who was trying to do this when he was talking about building, Pakistan as a Riyasat-e-Madina and all that utopia he had created. He wanted to align with Turkey. So, if you look at this geopolitical, you can say, bloc, which is an alternative to the American, Saudis, Indian, Israeli bloc, it's largely China, Pakistan, Iran, Turkey, and Azerbaijan. So these are the few countries which are now, trying to shape up their own influence. Obviously, Russia is part of that as well. So Turkey ka problem ye hai ki Turkey has come to a point where Turkey has to take clear lines of where it wants to stand. Now, the point is, if Turkish wants to stand right behind Pakistan in South Asia, and Turkey wants to go and have a power tussle with Israel in in Middle East, then will Turkey be a part of NATO in coming years? That is a question which is very pertinent and needs to be asked to the NATO and its allies, that will Turkey be a part of NATO allies? Because if you look at the mindset, if you look at the geopolitical shift Turkey is trying to make, I think it's making very hard. It's not very hard to understand that Turkey is actually trying to wrestle out of the NATO fold and align more towards the Chinese bloc. So, going forward, how does Turkey see it? Will Erdogan be in power? And if Erdogan goes out of power, will Turkey realign back into the NATO, and will we see, hostilities dying down? I don't think so, because then, the Kurds are somebody who would be looking at Turkey and trying to weaken Turkey, or trying to, uh, basically. Get autonomy from them for their own reasons. So there are a lot of things at play at not, which right now cannot be you can say predicted very well कि क्या होने वाला है Turkey में. But one thing is sure कि Erdogan's this very irresponsible statement has put India-Turkey relationships in a freeze. This relationship, by and large, was driven by pragmatism and realism, but I think the sentimentalism of this relationship has taken over from pragmatism and realism, and sentiments are heading where I think we are going to see a substantial freeze between India and Turkish relationships. How does it that affect India? Let's wait and see what Turkey will be able to do in OIC and all that. We will have to bicker out with them. I think we are very well prepared to bicker out with Turkey when it comes to international forums. Trade, I think, is going to get suspended. We are already seeing that Chalibi has been hit. Their shares are down by more than 10%. So economically, Turkey is taking economic hit. More than 2,000 crores worth of money has been lost by Turkey by just making out that statement, and India taking coercive actions against Turkey. I think the mood in India is very, very clear. If you want to deal with us, if you want to trade with us, then you better be on our side. You cannot be in a gray zone of ambiguity. Turkey is not even in that gray zone. Turkey has definitely crossed the red line and gone into the red zone. And why not? Because India is the largest growing economy. We are the fourth largest in the world, and our economy is our strength, and our strength is our geopolitical heft as well. So, how does India-Turkey relationships develop from here, or dip from here, is a matter of time to be seen, and we will know what will happen. But one thing is for sure, that by aligning with Pakistan and by becoming a competitor of Israel in Middle East, I think Turkey is something which United Nations would not be very sure if they want to be a NATO power in coming years or not. With that, thank you so much. If you like this, please like, share, subscribe, and do also press that notification bell, so when I can, whenever the video is out, you can know, and you can, watch this series. I thank you very much all for all your support and your love, and I'll see you next time. Till then, Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.